Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today is Thursday, April the 20th. Today, we're going to be talking about a deeper dive into creating reports. Charles has all kinds of tips and tricks up his sleeves. So roll up your sleeves, Charles, and take it away.
Thank you, Saundra. Okay, so the most important thing about these reports is things like, what am I paying out? How much do I owe? What employees do I have? All that kind of stuff. Those are the tools that we provide you by running everything through payroll. And so they are in two different sections. There is the document section, and this is where not only could you upload forms for yourself that you want to keep on available either under My Documents or under My Documents or miscellaneous, but you also have these payroll documents that are right here. And these are the ones that we run every payroll. It's basically the information from that payroll right as it processes. And we keep them here for 3 years as a convenience. And so you would see the selection of the check dates that you can select here to select which reports. And you could either click on each one individually by clicking on the name, and it brings up the PDF, opens up the PDF like this. Or you can click on Download All, and it creates a zip file. So by clicking on that Download All, you have automatically download them all in a zip file into your Downloads folder, as you see right here, right? So this is on my computer, and that's how you can get it onto your computer with just the click of a button. You don't have to open each one individually. They're there, and it's an easy way to bring them down. Now, that being said, the other item is tax documents. Now, tax documents, this right here, because we're in a sample company, we don't file taxes for it. This is the only spot where you're going to find the tax returns for the company. All right, like the company copy of the W-2s, the 941s, the DE-9s, or whatever state returns, and any amendments that we do on your behalf. This is where they are. Now, the W-2s for the individual, you could still find under the employee, but this is where we keep the complete company file that has everybody's W-2s all in one document. And so this is what you use when your accountant needs them for your company tax returns, right? We just do the payroll tax returns, the quarterlies and the annual ones for your payroll taxes. They do the ones for your business income taxes, right? And so they would need this information from here to file them. And then also the other thing is when you have a workers' comp audit, they do ask for things like the 941s or the state forms, right? And they will refer to them in different ways. Usually by the title of it. We would, if you let us know which ones they are, we can tell you, yes, that's here. This is where you find it. This is where you're going to find every payroll tax return that we file on your behalf. And then there's also the other thing that the workers' comp audit will ask for is a reporting for the policy period of your employee's pay. Okay, so that would be something that you can run the labor distribution report for. And so what I do here is I come to the standard reports. I'm on reporting, I come to standard reports. And this is where we have the list of all the reports that we have, including ones that are specifically for certain clients. And what that means is they won't run for anybody else. They'll only run for that client. But we have them all here because this is the repository. How do you search for the report that you need in the middle of all of this? Well, we do have things like the category, right? We can pull up pay run reports and we hit search. And these are all the reports. It's on 2 pages, as you can see right here, that are specifically for payroll runs, right? Payroll register, right? Tax deposit notices. I don't have that for you. Payroll summary reports. If I go to first page, things like, let's see here, employee payroll deductions, direct deposit reports, things like that. These are all ones, check register, which I'm just highlighting. These are all ones that are, ones you can run with each pay run. Okay. We also have, I'm going to click on it. We also have subcategories, right? So if you looked at audits, It would show you different, this one is specifically for if you are doing your ACA, Affordable Care Act 1095 reporting through us. This is the report that can be used for that. Another way is simply by going to the title field and typing in something like listing. Let's say you want to get a listing of all your employees. Well, type in listing and it brings up all the ones that has listing in the title, and you have right here employee listing. And also and you also, hey, look, termination listing. I can have a list of the terminated employees that were terminated over a particular period of time. So if I decide that's what I want to look for, so I click on it, and then I can tell it what time that I want to use. So I can pull up, like say, previous year, and then I can go down and I can check what options I want in here. Only display employees terminated between beginning and ending date entered. So it will only include the employees terminated during that time frame. So I click on that box, and then I could, if I wanted, put it into Microsoft Excel. I use data only because it strips out the formatting on the report and gives me just Excel style information, into fields. I could still use the Microsoft Excel and it will look like the report. It will look like the report as if it was in PDF, but it will be in an Excel format. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on that and show you what that looks like. So I'm going to click on Run Report. And this is running the report. By the way, we always recommend that you have pop-ups enabled for PCI Dash, because then when you do this using Google Chrome, it will create a second browser tab, if you notice at the top, for that report. And now it's got down here at the bottom the Excel spreadsheet. So I click on it to open it. All right. Okay, and this is the report as it looks. All right, so I just enabled the editing. This is what it looks like if I just brought it over in Excel. As you can see, it looks like the PDF. But if I stop that and I go down here and I change it to Microsoft Excel data only, and then I click on Run Report, and wait for it. And then it allows for this. So I can edit it, so I can expand out everything. And this is the information it gives me. And what I can do is I can edit this to where, now obviously it only shows one person, Orlando Bloom. They had to let him go. And so I can just remove these fields that are basically empty space and format it for myself. Right? But it gives me the information in a format in which I can actually then manipulate it for any other reason. And of course, the standard, of course, is always the PDF report, right? We can put it into PDF. And we do have available things like the ASCII text, comma, separated values, and so forth. Those are available in here. That's something that would be more advanced if you're able to use the ASCII format. You can even put it into Word, so it'll be editable and all that kind of stuff. But standard is, of course, PDF. Now, if you notice, we also have the availability of different options. These are different in each report. So now that I've shown you what it looks like in formatting, how you search for a report, right? And how you can run it in Excel, I'm going to bring up the labor distribution report that we talked about for workers' comp. And I'm going to hit search, and it's going to bring up 3 items here. Now, this labor distribution report export is a specialty item that we don't really run. But the ones that you would be looking at is the labor distribution and the labor distribution HCR. HCR stands for hard-coded report. It's a more restrictive report. It will give you the information, but it doesn't have a lot of editing options to it. What it does do is it runs quicker because it doesn't have all those selections, which you can use on the report. So usually when I'm doing a training, I use the labor distribution that isn't HCR, because then I can show you all the different features on it. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on that one. And here, let's say we have, now I did mention that we have these lists right here where I selected previous year for that other report. These are the most frequent ones that we found people run, like say current month, quarter, or previous year, that kind of thing. But we have other options in here. So if I click on override dates, then I can select these from these 4 different fields here, and they're set in 2 different ways. The beginning and end dates right here, they have drop downs of the check dates that you've run, okay? Whereas the custom begin date and custom end date, you can select any date on the calendar. So I click on it and it brings up 2 things. One, the dates that I use the most because it remembers them. And then behind it is this calendar, right? So let's say that but I can enter it just by entering the numbers themselves. So let's say that the workers, the policy period is from April 1st of last year, 04/01/2022 to 03/31/2023, right? That's what you usually get for your policy periods. Now I can go down here and I can change the sorting and subtotal. I'm not going to touch the filtering for this report, but you do have filters. You can do up to 2 filters per report, and they're specific to the reports. So if you had a report where you wanted to look at only active employees, you can put in employee status and then change it to active. The other thing you can do is with these reports is you can do what's called an and or statement. What is the difference? Well, an and by saying and, you're telling the report that you want the information that fulfills both of the filters. But if you use or, you're telling it you want information that fulfills either one of them. So the difference is if you use and, it has to meet the requirements of both the filters in order to be in the report. If it doesn't fulfill both, if it only fulfills one, it's not included. Or will include it if it or will include either. And then the next thing is the sorting and subtotals. Now, this is a labor distribution report. It's typically used to determine how you have your labor distributed. And what that means is that you have a report, say a report where you have your employees that are working in different departments, and you want to see how much it costs per department, for this employee, how much wages you're paying in which department and this other department, depending upon their work. But for our purposes, we're not going to do it by that. We could do it by name, but there's another thing that you can do, and that is a custom sort. Because some of the workers' comp auditors, they're actually sitting there going, and we want to see your 1099s. So when I do custom sort, it activates these 2 sections in here, these sorts down here at the bottom. So I'm going to select tax form. And then I'm going to come over here, I'm going to put tax form as well. And then I'm going to put employee name. Now, another reason is maybe they're not asking for the 1099s, but they still need this report and they only need your W-2 work. This is a way to separate those 1099 contractors out. You can even put page breaks after totals, and it will give you that page break. And so then down here, under the additional options, what you want to do is in this last line of employee information that's blank, this is where you can tell it if you want to include certain information, like you can change rate salary to something else. But in here, since I have this empty section, I'm going to put tax form, because if you're going to have it sort by something, you need to make sure that that something is in the report itself. And then I'm going to leave it at portable document format. And then I'm also going to do something here. I'm going to save company reports, and I'm going to tell it that I want it for workers' comp. If I save it there, then all these edits that I just did will stay here, and I can run the report this way forever and ever and ever. And the only thing I would need to do for the workers' comp is change the dates. So I'm going to save settings to do that. And then if I run the report, and we'll see what it brings up. Okay, so it's taking a little bit of a minute. Okay, so now notice this. It has the 1099 NEC all together by itself. And because I told the page breaks after totals, then my W-2s start here. So you could basically So you could basically do the totals. You just give your workers' comp auditor, if all they want is the W-2s, just the W-2 pages. Or if they do want this information on the 1099s, you can do that. So this is a feature that you have to fulfill the requirements for your workers' comp audit. It's great. And if I close this and I go back here and save company reports, since I saved it, right? I've got my, I want to include my terminated employees, so I'm going to remove that. Or I need to change the check dates. I need to update it to the next year. But this stuff, the custom sort, the tax form, all of that is still the same. So I don't have to recreate my report. And that's the beautiful thing of it. Now, another thing that's come up is, bringing up an employee's pay stubs. How do you do that? Well, let's go ahead and go back to the standard reports. And we'll go ahead and do, now they're known in here as personal earning statements. Right? So I do a search. Okay, and maybe I learn how to spell personal. Right? And then I do a search. And the one that I want is, you'll see over here in the report category, it says statement. Okay, so that's the one that I want. And so I go ahead and click on that right here. And then I can run it for, let's say I want to see the current year to date, right? And I want to do it by a particular employee. So I'm gonna, because I need these all for an employee. Let's say he's come to you and he says, I need these for a loan, right? I'm applying for a car loan, I'm applying for a mortgage, and I need to have my statements. So you click on employee, and then you would select the employee. Now this is sorted by their ID. So if you have a long one, you probably want to get the ID first, and then you can type it in, like say 8, Jason Momoa. Okay, and then I hit tab, and it will automatically fill the second one. And so, and I can also, it sorts automatically by department ID, but I can go ahead and change it to name or custom sort. And then for custom sort, I can have it do it by check date or even check voucher number. And display, and then I can, again, I can make these adjustments if there's anything, but it's like, no, this is all the information I want. And I can also save it in here, save company reports, personal earnings statement, JM, if I wanted to. I can even save it under my reports. And what's the difference? The saved company reports, anybody that has access to the company, like yourselves, you know, any administrator will be able to see it. My reports is specific to the user. So I go ahead and I hit save settings, and I can run the report. And this will show me every check that Jason Momoa has gotten this year. Okay, and it's a little slow, or there may not be any information in here. All right. So let's say I want to do no filter here and run it for the entire company. And then just change this, and hit save settings, and then run report. Now, the other way to get these is to go to the employee and pull up each individual check stub, but this way you can pull them all up at the same time. All right, so we've got these. Let's see. And yeah, there were for Jason Momoa. That's why we have an empty report. Okay. And so you have this information right here. Right? All of the check statements. So you have a report that brings all of them up rather than getting the check statements individually. And it gives the same information, right? So you have those for you. And then now, as I said, you have it under saved company reports, right? Personal earnings statements, previous years, and so forth. Okay, and then there's ones like my reports. This is the ones, if you went in to yours, if you logged in, you would not see this list because that's specific to me. And then if you run a report and you forget to print it, or you forgot to save it onto your computer, if it's been within 3 months, you can do my completed reports, and everything is here. everything is here. I have found manual checks that I've run for people in here. I have found check statements and stuff like that in here that I've run. So it's very useful in here, and W-4s that I pulled up. And then, so yeah, those are different tricks that you can do in the standard reports. If you just bring one up, right? If you just bring one up and you just use these different features. Now, what I like to do is I like to make sure that I've looked for a particular report that does what I want without having to build it in a specialized report, a custom report. And when I do that, it just means that it's like, the information's there, the report will take care of it, and you just like save it if you need to and go from there, right? And again, these additional options also change depending upon the report, just like the filters do. So it's a good thing to actually work with and play around, right? So that's basically how I've learned everything that I have in here. So if I'm thinking, do I want to register? Okay, what type of registers do I have? And it will give you the list: check registers, payroll check, payroll registers, pre-process registers, things like that. If I wanted to look for accrual reports, right? You click on accrual, and these are the accrual reports that we have. So we do have a variety, and it's just a matter of like, what type of report am I looking for? And again, you can always say, you can always contact us, go, do you have this kind of report? And it's like, yes, this is what it is. It's this report, and you can pull it up right here. Now, report writer, this is the last part I'm going to go over, and this is the one that can get tricky. There's two different types of report writers. My personal preference is the advanced report writer. I'm going to show you the basic real quick. Now, it says basic report writer over here on the right, which makes you think that, yeah, that's what I'm on. No, that is what you change it to. And when I click on it, I'm now in basic, and if I wanted to go to advanced report writer, I would click on it again. And so this report writer is a little different. Now, it will do current and year-to-date information, but you do have to do a lot of building of it first. So you'd have to actually give it a report ID and a report title first. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull up one that's already in here. Well, actually, this is what you do. That's what happens if you click on the name, is it brings up the running of the report. But editing the report will be the little pencil on the left. And so you have different things, right? You build it by using these right here to these lists right here to add information. So we've already have the first name, last name, and their current vacation, regular pay, and 401k. All right. So if I want to add something like what department they're in, I'd click on that and it adds the department. All right. And so you have these different fields that you would use. Okay. And so these current ones are coming from payroll history. And so you have your current year to date, current quarter to date, current month to date, and current, right? So these are the different ones. And so it does allow you to pull that information. And you can have like different ones. So you could have current, and then you could also have year to date on the same report. But it takes a little while to build. There's a lot of trial and error into it. And you do have where you can do the fields, and you can do certain filters, and so forth. This one is a little bit more complicated. It's not as intuitive as the advanced, but it is useful if you need something to pull up, things like current year to date, current quarter date, and stuff like that. And, by that, I mean, it will bring up, whatever it is for that particular quarter or for that particular year, from the beginning of that quarter or year to whatever date that you're running the report. And so I'm just going to go ahead and hit cancel and go back to the reports list. And I'm going to click on Advanced Report Writer. Now this one I do prefer because it is a better user interface. And so I'm just going to click on Add Report Writer. And the one thing I love is it doesn't require me to give it a title and save it first. I can go in here and I can make my adjustments, and then when I'm satisfied, then I can go ahead and save the report. And in here, you'll see things like you can create it's just this really useful clicking interface. So it's like if I wanted to include the company code, and then I want to include the employees, I can do first name, last name, and middle name in fields, or I can do one that has all three beginning with last name. And you'll see on the right over here, this is where the fields show up. So I have company and I have last first name. And let's say I put in employee ID and I want to move it. I would just grab it over here on the right and I would move it in front of the last first name. And there it is. Now, some of you may have reports that you need certain information, right? Like you have a 401k report that you upload, you need it built, and you don't have, say, Roth 401k, but they require a Roth field in the report. Well, what you can do is you can click on this little, looks like a Post-it note, and you can create a field for Roth 401k. And you can either enter static information that will show all the way down, or leave it empty, and it will be a placeholder. It will be a placeholder where you can like leave it empty in the report, and it will create it will allow it so that every other field in the report that you have to upload will be spaced out properly, so that when you upload it, all the information will be in the right column. So you hit submit. And so why would you enter information? Well, let's say that you have a 401k plan or something like that where they require you to include the plan ID. So you just click on this, you would put plan ID, and then you would put the number for the plan ID. So like ABC 123, and submit. And it's like, oh, it's supposed to be in front of the company ID. So I put it up at the top, and they don't want the company ID. So I click on the black X to remove it. And it's like, I want to see if this is working properly. So I'm going to click on preview right here, and you'll see it. The plan ID all the way down, the employee ID, and the name. And there's nothing in Roth 401k because again, we haven't put anything in here for it. So I hit close. Now, I put in this information under the personal right here. Now this section, the employee data section, is all static information that you'd find under the employee, like what their hourly rate is, what their salary per pay period is, right? And these earnings and deductions would be if you have a recurring earning or deduction assigned to them. Okay, the accruals, if I scroll over, the accruals wouldn't be their accrual balance. It wouldn't necessarily be their accrual balance. Well, actually, let me see. Adjusted length of service use days. No, it doesn't have their balance. What it will show you is the pieces of their setup. Okay. So if I wanted information on the payroll history, then I go to this section down here, and this is where I can tell it what I want. Now, the one trick is there's gross amount and there's gross pay. Now, one of these will make it show every single check date for the period that you run the report. And the other one will just summarize everything. And I will be honest, I can't remember which one is which. I think, so I just play with it. I run it to see what it will do. And then I test it. And if it has like, the same employee 500 times, then I know, okay, that's not the one I want. I want the summary. So I just remove it and I put in the other one. So it's going to be gross pay and gross amount, or gross hours and gross hours calculated. So it's going to be like that. And then you have things like you can put in the check date, you can put in the check number, all that kind of stuff. You can put in so for 401k reports, you would put in what their match was. You'd also put in the 401k amount, right? And that's the only one in here. So let's go ahead and hit preview over here on the right, and you'll see that there's, again, we haven't been running any kind of thing in this sample, but you see where it would put the information. So for 0, right here, and so forth. Now that's the preview. Now I'll get to how you can save this in just a second, but first, first we'll go to filters. And the filter is where we can tell it what period we want it to run, right? So we would tell it that you want the year to date, say, or the current month or a quarter, or you can put in a specific check date, or you could even put in a date range, and then you'd have your selection of check dates. And you can tell it if you want just active employees or all or what have you. Now it will look at ones that are active right now. So if you want to include people that were terminated in that time frame, you would select all. And it will bring up their information for that period. And then you also have down here at the lower left where you can actually do custom filters, right? Where you can select from the codes and value, right? So if you wanted to run this for only people with in a certain department, you can add their department in here, right? There's CC1, and then you can tell it that you only want it for a particular department. Mind you, you would have to know what the department name or number is. So if you put 100, that would be all employees or what have you. But those are the custom filters that you can do. And then below that section is the sort. And this is where you can tell it what field is going to be sorted by. But all of this is depending upon the fields that you add to the report. So if you don't add a particular field to it, you're not going to be able to filter by it or sort by it. And then when you're ready to save it, you can click on Save Report, and it will expand out this section so you can give it an ID, and then you can give it a name, and then you would also put it in Excel spreadsheet format. Okay. And so I'm just going to give it a name, right? And I'll just hit save. And now I'm going to click on Run Report. And what it does is it creates that spreadsheet. And of course, you get the warning because it's wanting to make sure that it's okay before you open it. And it shows up like this. And it has this section where it gives you the totals at the top. So if you had any information in here, it would total it right here. I'm going to enable editing. And then if you needed to, you could remove this formatting, you can strip, you can change, you can like go ahead and highlight this and adjust the fonts to your liking, that kind of thing. Now when you, let's say you try to save it, you would go File, and then you would hit Save. Okay. And you don't want to hit Save because you want to hit Save As. Why? Because it saves as a web page by default. So you want to make sure you change it to Excel. And then you can tell it where you want to save it to. So that's important because I've run into that where I try to save it and it automatically tries to save as a web page. So I have a document on my computer that's a web page I can't open because it's supposed to be in Excel. Okay. And that's the different kind of things you can do in Report Writer. It's a little bit complicated. You might want to try it out. It's not going to harm anything if you test this. If you create like a test report for yourself and just play with it, it's not going to harm anything. That's a good thing to remember, is that you're not going to cause any issues with payroll by running a report. So you can make adjustments to this. You can even try out the basic report writer. That may be more your field. Some people like this one. Some people like the basic that I showed you. It just depends on personal preference or your needs. This one is not able to run both year to date and quarter to date or month to date on the same report. It doesn't do that. You have to put in a date range and it will give you the information for that range, and that's it. So it's that kind of thing. So while we're at any kind of questions on any of that?
My goodness, that was really good, Charles. I do have a question just for maybe people thought about that as you were going through the pay stub demonstration. There's another way to get to the pay stubs. By going to the employee record under pay history. But you showed us a way to get all those stubs in a date range,
Yes.
right? So better to use the report writer in order to do that for a date range rather than having to print one pay stub at a time. Is that your suggestion?
It just depends on your needs. If you have somebody who's just saying, can I get a reprint of my last check date? You can just go in here and click on this button and it will bring it up.
Okay.
Now that's if you need one. But if they're saying, I need all my check statements from last year, that, depending upon your pay frequency, that could be 12 separate reports you're pulling up to 26 or 52.
Right.
So for that, you want to run the one that brings them all together in one report. It saves you time. And the main difference is that the personal earnings statements I brought up, it gives you this information down here. All the personal, it doesn't give you a facsimile of the check itself like this one does, where it says, void, this is not a check, all of that. It gives you the information underneath that. So that's the difference basically between the two formats, but they provide the same information. So it just depends on which one's easier. If it's just one check stub, it's easier to go here, click on this, and just print it up. If it's going to be the entire year, it's easier to go to reporting and to bring up the personal earnings statement.
Okay.
So
I like the distinction between the two. I also like the fact that there's so many ways that we can customize a report and that it's not going to mess with anything if we're playing around with it, making a test report. That gives me confidence that I can go and play. I'm always afraid I'm going to break something. So I appreciate you giving us the permission to do that.
Even here, right here, if you bring up a report and you decide you want to do some editing to it, you're not going to break the report here because the report is still in the system. All you're going to do is tell it what you want to see.
Okay.
That's it. So you're not actually breaking anything by running the reports, by creating a report writer. So if it's like, oh, this isn't working. Like I said, if you saved a report in here and it doesn't work, you can just delete it and start over by clicking on this black X. Now, mind you, you don't want to delete anything that somebody else has put in here because they may be using it for something. In that case, if you were just wanting it just for you, you would put under my reports. And here,
So
for me, I could just delete all these because no one else sees this. No one else sees my reports.
Okay. We are getting close to a little long, but I do want to highlight the payroll summary report. Do we have one that shows the taxes and the billing and all that you can show us?
Yes, payroll.
I just want to see one.
So
I just want to see one that's already been put together.
Oh, one. Well, the payroll summary report I can run here, or I can just go to the documents and pull up the one at that pay period.
Okay.
But here,
do you have one that you can show us a sample? Because I've had questions of how do I know how much money I need to have in my bank account, and how do I know where my taxes were paid? And that's where I refer my clients. Perfect. That's exactly what I want. Can you increase the size of the screen, please, Charles?
Yes.
Okay. So for those of you who are on this webinar, I don't know if any of you have called me to ask me about this report or where you can find it. This is the wealth of information that summarizes everything that PayrollCentric has done on your behalf. And it gives you the information that you need to know, if you scroll down to the bottom, how much money needs to be in your bank account in order to cover payroll.
Actually, it doesn't have that feature. So it's a good thing that I know how to run that feature, because what it is called the cash analysis, and we have to click on a button to have it show up on this report. So it's not done on this because this is our sample company. But if
it's the
you
sample, right?
Yeah,
but on your company, it will show.
What you do, what you can do is tell us if you don't see the cash analysis when you're running it in payroll documents, we can just add it on our side so you'll see it in the future, and so forth. But if you need to run the report, you can, if you just want it real quick, you just go to payroll summary, search, bring up the report, and then again, this is one where you can run it for multiple dates, and it will put everything together in lump sums. But let's say it's just going to be the most recent payroll process, and it's just a matter of going down here and clicking on Show Cash Analysis, and then just running the report, and it will bring up whatever date or date range that you want it for. So you can just see how much did it cost for me that quarter. You can do that. But in the meantime, the cash analysis, I'm going to blow it up, is always at the bottom. And it will tell you, it's going to have right here, it says cash required to cover payroll. This one doesn't have any taxes. As you can see, the tax liability, I'm going to bring it up even closer. The tax liability is 0. But what you would see down here under account activity is you would also see the cash the cash required for taxes, and another one cash required for our billing. Right, so you'd see 3 items and then a total underneath. Right. So this right here has a total of 250. So that's how you look at it. The total would be right there, and then the amounts for each line item would be listed here, and then the line items would be listed right here. So that's where you look for it.
And if you scroll back up, Charles, it'll also show you that the withholding has been taken out for California, state unemployment, and for education and training, or whatever applies to your particular state. I really think that is the information that many companies don't understand. Like, how do I know you paid my taxes for me? Well, it's right here. This is the form that you can look at to know that PayrollCentric has covered the payroll taxes, and we have withheld the proper amount for withholding to cover for the end of the year for when they file their personal taxes.
Yes.
It also would do it by employee. So that you can have a look at that as well to make sure in the payroll register to see that the employee's withholding was done properly. Sometimes we have, like mid-year, they go, oh my gosh, am I withholding enough? Well, you can run that payroll register for the employee and have a look and just make sure that they can take that number to the CPA, and he or she can determine whether or not they've withheld enough for their tax filings.
Exactly. Now, it's not showing in here because, again, this is our sample company.
Right.
But what you would see is if there were actual taxes to deposit, you'd see a separate section that says transfers. As you can see, there's no transfers listed here. And it would also list the list of tax deposits for the date range that you run this report. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the tax deposits and transfers, the tax deposits may be on a different date than your payroll because, say, state unemployment and federal unemployment are on the quarterly deposit frequency. So they may appear at the end. If you run this for a period of time, it will show you each tax deposit that we've done and the date that it was performed and what date it was for. Other things you will see on here is tax ID. We have questions sometimes. What is our tax ID? It will tell you here, both for the feds and for the state. Okay. It will tell you the SUI rates. Right? So if you have a particular, if you want, what is my SUI rate? It will be on the form. Okay? And it'll even tell you up at the top, of course, is how much you had in net checks total, how much you had in direct deposit amounts total. All of that information is on here. It's a very useful report.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, SUI means state unemployment insurance. Sometimes they are confused with other things. All right. Well, Charles, again, bang up, wonderful job. Thank you very much. I don't see any questions in the chat. That tells me that they're still mulling over everything you showed them. But you can always send us a question to my email. I'll make sure that Charles gets it, and we'll be able to respond on a one-on-one basis for you. All right. Things to come. Next week, we have a guest presenter, Amanda Luftman. She's been here before. She's the managing partner of Bourne, Osher, and Luftman, and she's going to be talking about arbitration agreements and separation agreements. These are really important documents that have become very popular of late. And so I'm going to encourage you that when you get the invitation next week, please forward it to your HR person and or the owner of your company. I think that it would be very valuable information for them to hear. And of course, we do record these, so it will be recorded and they can go to our PayrollCentric presentation page, which the link is on the bottom of all of your invitations that I send. And then on May the 4th, I'm not too excited about this. We have a guest presenter. His name is Brian Stampley. You might recognize that last name. It is my son, in whom I am well pleased. He will be presenting a webinar on business funding for small businesses regarding loans and managing your capital, making it work for you instead of against you. He's really smart, and I'm just so excited to have him come and share with you. He shared with us last year, and he's actually back by popular demand. So I'm excited for that. So please mark your calendars. And again, that's something for your business owner or CFO to attend as well. And of course, we will record that with his permission and with Amanda's permission. They will be on our YouTube channel. Some of you have asked about YouTube because it's blocked on your computer. Know that we've heard you, and Maha is working on another platform where we can post these webinars. That's something to come soon. I don't know when, but know that we are working on that option. All right. Any questions, any comments? Otherwise, I'm going to bid you a wonderful day and ask you to please stay safe out there. Thank you for joining us. You're part of our PayrollCentric family, and we love you. Thank you. Bye-bye for now.